let him have it. But federal court, Mann Act violations? Right. What? How about espionage? How about terrorism? Let's call him this some kind of he's a domestic terrorist. Treason. Yeah, that's it. The death penalty. Treason. Let's just throw everything at him.
Too much baby oil.
Why? Because he beat up Cassie Ventura. I don't care whether I'm the only one saying this, because that's usually the way I am. I'm always the only person saying this. And I don't care for him, but they hosed him. They hosed him. He doesn't deserve that. And if they hosed him, they're going to hose you next, or me, or anybody else.
Sean Diddy Combs was sentenced to just over 4 years in prison on Friday after being convicted of transporting women to participate in drug-fueled sex marathons. In July, a jury found Combs guilty on 2 counts of prostitution to engage in prostitution related to his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, and a victim who testified under the pseudonym Jane. Diddy got almost 4 years and people are still mad. And I don't think anybody, especially other attorneys out here that are giving out bad information, some of them were just convinced days before that he was supposed to serve the rest of his life in prison. They're so caught up on whatever personal issue they have with Diddy, they can't really see the legal implications of this. I mean, we all saw what he did and we heard what happened, and we know he's a piece of shit. We know what he did was. But that doesn't mean he needs to spend the rest of his life in prison like some people would want. Like, you see people all over the internet that are just so up in arms about the fact that he didn't get more than 4 years. They were just convinced he was going to get the maximum. But our guy, Lionel Legal, we've been following him throughout this case. Go check out his YouTube channel. He had this to say about it.
This Diddy case was the biggest bunch of nothing I've ever seen in I don't know how long. And what amazes me are the people who just hated him, who just wanted blood because he was this bad guy. Let me ask you something. What if Hugh Hefner, remember the stories of Hugh Hefner? Hugh Hefner abused these girls, and Hugh Hefner took advantage of girls, and Hugh Hefner may have actually done some terrible things. Playboy bunnies, women who went out of their way to audition for him. Now, that doesn't give anybody carte blanche. That doesn't give anybody license or an excuse to commit sexual battery. But Diddy never transported women for prostitution, and if he did, they're prostitutes. Is anybody following this?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody understand what the Mann Act is?
Yeah, and that was always the thing. The Mann Act violations, like, it should have come with a lesser penalty. Once he beat the big charges, like, it really should have came with a lesser penalty just because of the history of the Mann Act. They created the Mann Act to get Jack Johnson, the famous black boxer, who was with his girlfriend, and they got him for transporting prostitutes across state lines. And this is what Diddy was charged with. I think people lose perspective on that point. They want him to be charged for domestic violence, battery against Cassie, and all the things that were alleged that he did. But we got to come back to the law.
Get him on sex trafficking. They didn't get him on racketeering. And this is the only thing. They called him like a pimp, like he was some kind of a big, international, but some love broker, to use that night shift or after hours. I mean, he's a dirtbag. But this goes on all the time. Whom did he piss off to get this sentence? Why him?
Yep.
Why him? There are people who run over. I mean, look at how we handle illegals who murder. Nobody's bats an eye. But this guy, because of Cassie, his girlfriend, he's a dirtbag. But federal Mann Act violation because he beat the hell out of Cassie, which is horrible. I don't think people understand that. What if they charge him with arson? And you said, well, that's terrible. It's no, but it's arson. He didn't go, who cares? He beat her up. I said, excuse me.
Yeah, and that arson thing is another point. They always want to put that Kid Cudi situation on him, but it was still never proven. It was still whatever happened in Los Angeles at the police department. They didn't have the evidence that it was Diddy that did this. They only had the testimony of his assistant, for whatever reasons, could have her own motives on how she wanted to tell the story. But a lot of people on the internet and elsewhere wanted to say, oh, well, he's an arsonist. He blew up Kid Cudi's car. There was no proof of that. Even Kid Cudi's couldn't pinpoint that it was Diddy. He said he had an issue with Diddy, and he was also smashing Cassie. Could they put the fingerprints on Diddy? No, they had a female's fingerprints on the bottle. It was a terrible job on how they did this Molotov cocktail.
He didn't commit arson. Is anybody following this?
Right.
You know how many professional athletes there are in this country? Let's say 2,500. I don't know. Let's just say 2,500. And between the Major League Baseball, NBA, and NFL.
Yeah.
The traveling and the groupies and the modeling agency. There are more Diddies than you can imagine. What about this?
Yep, I told you in my coverage of this before. This is going to change the way, the IG models and all these people are doing this fly out culture, where you go to some random man's house to get hit. Like these NBA players, these NFL players, these rappers, anybody who's flying somebody out using Instagram as a menu for women, it's going to look like this exact thing that happened to Diddy. Even though he was flying prostitutes here and there, they were going of their own volition. It didn't seem like anybody was forced into this. That's what I have to say about Judge Subramanian's ruling. Like when he was talking about it, he was bringing up a lot of things that were outside of what Diddy was charged with. He was just going on all of the information that he heard, which I believe is his right. He can do that as a judge. But I think when it comes back for appeal, if his team decides to take this further or if they just want to do the time or whatever, because not only does Diddy have to do 50 months potentially, and with all the reductions, he has a $500,000 fine, which is the maximum fine they could give. And the defense and the prosecution also came to terms when they were trying to negotiate this, probably thinking he wasn't going to get a lot of time. They agreed to asset forfeiture. So that means potentially one of Diddy's properties where maybe something like freak off happened is going to be submitted. So that could be, as a millionaire, it could be millions of dollars, right? That's kind of crazy still. And, I believe when he's released, he'll also have some type of probation or supervised release for 5 years. But his legal team, like I said, when you're facing 20 years in prison, if they're able to get you out where you don't have to spend the rest of your life in prison, I think it's a pretty good deal still.
And you can imagine. What about this freak? What's his name? Ruben? What about this guy who had a woman basically in a torture chamber?
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's something big. That's big. What about Epstein? What about all the girls who were recruited by other girls to work for him? Listen, if you're underage, I'm not even going to bother to argue the point. I understand completely. If you're underage, it's a different story. But the real people. Now, do you think that makes any difference that he's some black guy, some black rapper?
Absolutely.
Do you think so? Do you think maybe that works? You think so? Of course it does. And you mean to tell me, what about all the other people who went to these things? Weren't they involved in this? Weren't they aiding and abetting the transportation of women for the purposes of prostitution? Like what, Jack Johnson case? Are you kidding me? I hate unfair. And when the judge says, I'm going to take into account all considerations. Wait a minute. Let's talk about what he's been found guilty of. A Mann Act violation, prostitution, it was called white slavery years ago. Having women crossing state lines for purposes of this. For the love of God. Look, I'm no fan of his. I don't care. He'll come out, whatever. But how have we benefited from this? But Diddy, lube and Astroglide and baby oil and Tootsie Rolls. We know all.
It was really embarrassing. It was more of an embarrassment ritual is what it seemed like. They put all this stuff out there like, make no mistake about it. I do not condone 90% of the stuff that Diddy did, but should he have faced jail time for this when there are probably 10 times worse examples of people out here doing similar things?
I don't understand how we allocate resources. I don't care how we get upset over things. I don't remember the expression, you want to make a federal case out of this? Why did he? Why? Racketeering?
Mm-hmm.
What?
That's a charge they had designed specifically for the mob. Is Diddy a mobster? Like all this freaky sex and him being in the public eye, like could he have been John Gotti this whole time? Is it to that point of severity? That's what I'm trying to figure out. He's a dirtbag. It's obvious. He beats women. He's a sexual deviant, all of those things. But it doesn't warrant a RICO Act and racketeering that they built for mobsters.
Thank God the jury saw through that. Look, these people were dirtbags and lowlives, and nobody likes him, and it was all about the celebrity. That's what and Comey's daughter, who led that case, she should be ashamed of herself. Who approved of this stuff? Listen, I don't know whether Jay-Z or Fiddy or Eminem. I don't know any of these people. I don't know any involvement. I know nothing about this. Remember there was that creepy lawyer who was having people call up with 800 numbers and they were going to bring all these lawsuits. And
Busby.
Listen, it was, they saw the gravy train, and I get it, and I'm a lawyer, and I understand it. I dig that whole thing. But this was a joke. Did he piss somebody off with that liquor line? Was that it? Did he? It's the same thing with Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein could bring down the deep state after all he did for the Clintons and everybody else. I don't understand how this works, but it has nothing to do with the actual merits of the case. What he did is wrong. It's state court. They should have busted his ass in California for domestic violence, assault, and or battery. He should have done time for that. I got no problem with that.
Yeah, why is it federal? It's federal because he crossed state lines, because he lives the life of a rap mogul. Come on. It didn't pass the smell test when they brought it out the first time.
He beat the hell out of this woman? Fine. Let him have it. But federal court, Mann Act violation? Right. What? How about espionage? How about terrorism? Let's call him this some kind of he's a domestic terrorist. Treason. Yeah, that's it. The death penalty. Treason. Let's just throw everything at him.
Too much baby oil.
Why? Because he beat up Cassie Ventura. I don't care whether I'm the only one saying this, because that's usually the way I am. I'm always the only person saying this. And I don't care for him, but they hosed him. They hosed him. He doesn't deserve that. And if they hosed him, they're going to hose you next, or me, or anybody else. We're supposed to be a country of laws, not of needless excitation.
Yeah, so that's interesting. But Diddy's legal team had their own statement about how they're going to go forward and proceed in this case, and if they're going to appeal or not.
We are planning to appeal. We think we have strong bases to appeal. The strongest basis is that the jury reached a verdict on coercion. It found there was not coercion, and I think the judge said coercion today as a basis for a sentence at least a dozen times. We think that is unconstitutional. We think that a jury verdict should mean more than our jury's verdict seems to mean, and so we are planning to appeal.
Wow.
Jimmy clearly thought the sexual encounters weren't consensual.
Because he's biased.
What did you make of his remarks?
He's biased.
If anyone, I'm happy to go. So we think that's just absolutely inconsistent with the jury's verdict. I mean, the jury's verdict was resoundingly clear. There was no sex trafficking. There was no racketeering. Everything was consensual. Everything was adult, which is why he was convicted only of the prostitution offense. What we feel happened today was that the judge acted as a 13th juror, one that we did not choose, and that he second-guessed the jury's verdict. We're going to try and find the right facility for Mr. Combs. We're going to ask the judge to recommend that. We are very serious about pursuing an appeal, so we have a number of things all going on at the same time.
All right, so there you have it. Now they've got to actually find a federal prison for Sean Diddy Combs. You know, he's been in jail for 14 months now, 13, 14 months, but I think it's You know, it's a result, but they're still going to appeal, and I think that's within their right. Diddy was facing a maximum of 20 years in prison. The federal prosecutors, as recently as last week, asked for 11 years. The fact that he gets just over 4 years, and you know, he gets the credit for his time served, and also possibility, I heard there's possibility of him getting credit for 15% off of his time for things that he's done for certain other things. I think what it boils down to is Diddy's going to do just about 2 years, barring any outside chance that his legal team has been lobbying for him to get a pardon from Donald Trump. Like I said, this is a Mann Act violation. And the judge, as Mark Agnifilo pointed out, was talking about coercion and other things that weren't related to what he was supposed to be sentencing for. This isn't, you get to pick what crimes were committed and then we're going to talk about that. You had an overall general distaste for how Diddy was living his life. You just sentence this man to federal prison where anything can happen. I mean, obviously there are good situations. Hopefully, you know, he might end up in a situation like a club fed. You know, I don't think he needs to do any crazy supermax federal prison that the prosecution might want. But I do think it's important they find where he can go. But anyway, I want to know what you think about it in the comments. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all uploads. This is Faucette Media.